Hello, Saturday, and I've gone for one subject today, demographics, firing off a Planet Money interactive chart, which will be the only link. We get the two axes of these, which are number of kids per woman, which is the up and downy axis, and the number of elderly people per 100 of working age adults. So 100 working age adults, and at the moment we've got France with just over 20 elderly for each 100, 5-to-1 ratio, but they're using 20 to 100, and then 30 to 100, 40 to 100, that's along the bottom. So let's get into this slowly with France, Germany, Italy and Greece, the four green European countries, because they're all going to move and I won't keep them labelled all the time. So green is the European countries, France, Germany, Italy and Greece. They're all under 3 children per woman. See, coming downwards, should be able to see on the scale, all under 3, and just about round to under 20 elderly per 100. Japan's at 10 elderly per 100, but they've got a low birth rate of 2 per woman. The US is 3.75 children per woman, and there's no trouble with the working age, the working age adult elderly ratio. And I've just noted China at the top in blue. So the US to note is orange, and that bottom light blue one is Japan, and it'll stick out for a long time from the other light blues at the top, which are the Asian ones. And let's go. That was 1960. I've pulled it up to 1970, and you can see the US comes down from 3.75, I think I said it was, down to the European rate of just over 2, and the Europeans have come down slightly as well. And Japan has stayed where it was at just over 2, and that's the big story. It's the birth rate coming down, 1970. There's been a slight movement in the amount of elderly per workers, but it's the big story is the birth rate for women, and it's coming down in the Western world. Let's go on to 1980, and I've put in China and South Korea come down below 3 children per women, and that's still the only story in town. The birth rates are coming down, so South Korea is now in with the Western advanced world. 1990, we're really coming up to modern day, and still things haven't moved in the elderly to workers category. But Brazil and Mexico, their birth rates have come down now, down to where under where the United States was in 1960. They're rattling around just over and just under 3. That was 1990, so a big jump up to the year 2000, and other countries like the United Arab Emirates, uncivilized places like, and Tajikistan, their birth rates have come down to under 3 and around 4. In other words, just about the whole world that has had any sort of civilization touch it, their birth rates for the women are coming down. But in the Western world, have been civilized for ever such a long time, all the under 30 it's moved from where it was at 20 about elderly per 100 workers, and it's moved to just under 30. No great big move, 20 to 30, but the picture is kind of the elderly to workers ratio is starting to move, and the rest of the world is still coming down with their children to women ratio. That's 2000. If we move up to today, we can see other countries have started coming down, and all countries have come down with their birth rates. You can see, I think that Tajikistan or the United Arab Emirates. That's the light blue. That's still over 3, but everybody else is around or underneath 2 children per woman. But the big story is changing now. It's starting to be the big story is the amount of elderly there are per workers or working age people in the population. And you can see Japan's just jumped to over 40, and everybody at the Europeans are moving over 30. Now that's today, and that is bad for Japan. It's starting to be bad for Europe. The US is held back at about 20, so there's no real problem for the US, but obviously the US starts moving now, and I've now gone on a 20-year jump, I think, for 1G. Yeah, we're up to 2032. The United States has moved from just over 20 to just under 40, so that's what would have been one of the worst a few decades earlier, and everybody else is streaming to the right. Everyone's streaming to the right, with Japan at nearly 60 now. And if I push it on to 2052, I've just written the Ponzi pension game has broken down, because before we get to 2052, you can see the elderly per working population, it couldn't survive. So many of them are over 50. That's 50 elderly for every 100 workers. That's one elderly for 2 workers. 2 workers are supporting an elderly. And it's, I suppose, technically possible, but it's going to have huge ramifications. I don't see how it is technically possible with the Ponzi way that most Western pension systems are set up, with the predicated on the fact that the newcomers will pay for the old goers outers, and then they move across the working population. They become old, and then there's a new lot of young coming in to support them. And that was a good idea in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it is increasingly stopping becoming a good idea. And as we go into the future, in my opinion, it becomes an impossible idea, and it's just another of those things that will have to change. But what will make it change? So that's it for demographics today. Bye.